This is the new setup. Um, I like it, bro. Like shit is dope. All right, so what I've been doing tonight, guys, is and I'm talking low just because my family's sleeping. This shit is zoomed out. But what I'm doing tonight is I'm working on. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so y'all can see what's going on here. I'm working on a dashboard for investing, and ChatGPT is kind of helping me build it. Where did I put ChatGPT at? Accidentally exited it out. But I'm enjoying this, man. Like I'm building this out, and eventually I'm gonna be able to build a dashboard where you guys can access and see what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Uh, I think that'll be dope. That'll be helpful. But I'm loving this stuff. Now I do want to show you guys my portfolio right now because I haven't given y'all an update. You guys remember some of the trades that we did? We opened up on Thursday, right? So it's been less than a week. Well, now it's been 6 days, but it's been 5 days because the market hasn't opened yet, right? Let me show you guys the positions that I had. Check it out. Zoom in. All right, so that's as of I think today. Hold on now. How do I do this? Hmm. No wonder these numbers have been kind of weird. Oh, here it goes. My bad. All right, so you guys can see Hims came crashing down. This Hims was a lot better than this not too long ago, but I'm not too worried about it. We still got 30 days, you know. Um, Hood is at 61%. Palantir is at 49%. The SoFi puts, remember, like for a few weeks there, we were tracking down for a couple weeks there, you know. And this is gonna expire soon. I'll probably take profits, bro, and get right back in. I'll probably roll this and get right back in for another 30 days. And I'll match the expiration date that I have with these. So all of my puts will be the same date. That's fire. So as of this month, you know, last month we did $7,500 in profits, right? This month we're already at 346, 45, 430, 450, 14, 1500, 1800, 2200. Oh no, what am I talking about? No, not 2200. Let's say 1100, 1200 bucks. Already made 1200 bucks. And we're 5 days in. So if I close all of these, actually, because they're all the ones that are 50% or above, I should just close them and or roll them and get right back in. Because what I've been watching with the stock market, bro, it's looking good, bro. It's looking actually sweet. Like, let's listen to a couple of these, right? You guys know I like Thomas Lee. Let's check him out. Everything he says is the market's going up, though.
Welcome back. Get ready for a melt-up rally. That is what our next guest is calling for in the months ahead. He is Tom Lee. He is FundStrat's co-founder and the head of research, also a CNBC contributor. And as you see, he's here at Post 9. Nice to have you.
Great to see you,
Just
Scott.
saw Dietrich on. He's bullish. And you are too, but you say too many people are not.
Yeah, I would. You'd think that with the S&P doing well this week and a great May, investors are bullish. They are not. You know, in our calls and Zooms with portfolio managers, many are still cautious because they see tariff risks ahead and they don't have tariff resolution in hand and they can't get bullish. I think the feedback we get from a lot of folks is they think stocks shouldn't be rising. So I would say, given the amount of cash on the sidelines, the fact that short interest is going up, and we have a quiet week and markets are rallying, I think the risk is now of a substantial leg up rally from here.
What role do tariffs play in all of the way you're thinking about the market?
Well, tariffs matter. Remember, before February, you know, before Trump sort of talked about this, the base case for many was a 15% tariff. Let's say that we're going to end up at a 10%. That's 10% on 15%, which is imports, which is about a 1% GDP effect. That's not that different than oil going from 40 to 80, and we wouldn't say $80 oil breaks the economy anymore. So I think tariffs aren't, we have to adjust to it, but it's not the thing that takes us to 4,000 S&P anymore.
Now, what if there's a renewed and more protracted, if not dug-in fight over the tax bill? What if Musk's post on social media earlier is enough to get some lawmakers in a very thin margin Washington to rethink their positions based on his political donations or lack of support in the future? Is that a real concern in any way?
Well, this is what's going to be set up as what I'd call event risk. And it's an event risk similar to a government shutdown or an auto plant shutdown, something that affects the economy for a specific period of time. But again, those have not been things to turn structurally bearish. They may be tactical risks, but again, they've always been buy the dip opportunities.
So if, for argument's sake, the tax bill ends up not as big as the price tag is on it now, would that be a positive taken by the market? Maybe the bond market would feel pretty good about that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Scott, it's kind of hard to say because I could see it being if bonds rally, that's good for equities. But if this tax bill leads to more spending, even if yields rise, markets are going to focus on the earnings effect. So I'm just going to say it could go either way. I mean, it could be bad or it could be good.
When you hear Jamie Dimon talk about there will be cracks in the bond market, do you just brush that off as that, I would expect someone in Jamie's position to be talking about the risks that are in the system? Or do you sit back and say, well, maybe that first little scream from the bond market was before there's a full-on tantrum, which wouldn't be good for equities in any way?
Well, JP Morgan has a dashboard to the U.S. economy because they see consumer credit. They see it real time. We know consumer credit delinquencies are rising and auto loan delinquencies are rising. But is that going to spill over into the broader credit market to create a credit event? The one market we watch is high yield. High yield spreads have actually managed to hold on to most of the rally gains, and they've retraced 70% of the widening. That's a market that says the economy actually is starting to strengthen.
So you don't put that much cred into bigger worries about the bond market having an issue anytime soon. And even for accuracy's sake, I mean, it's not like he said we're going to have this issue tomorrow. I don't know if it's 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. I'm paraphrasing, but that's generally what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jamie's flagging that there are parts of the economy that are weak, including housing. I mean, housing is deteriorating very quickly, but that's also going to deliver a pretty big deflationary pulse. That was 75% of the rise in inflation since 2019 is housing and auto services. So if housing is turning down on price because there's supply, I would argue that's a structural decline in inflation. The Fed would actually have to be quite dovish in the next 12 months. That's bullish.
How many times does the Fed hike between now and the end of the year?
Well, I think you mean cut.
I meant cut. Sorry.
Okay.
I hope that wasn't a Freudian slip. Cut.
Yes. They may not do any cuts between now and the end of the year.
But that'd be fine?
Yeah, I think the stock market, now that we're in June, is starting to look at 2026. And I think the Fed's going to be, they're in a position to do cuts next year. That's what's going to be bullish for equity.
Lastly, still ride this tech run?
Yes, I think the Mag 7 were the first to peak, the first to bottom. They were the washed out stocks that didn't make new lows in April. So we like the Mag 7, but we also like this financials, industrials, and small caps for the second half.
Tom, why do you keep doing this to yourself? Last year, you said you like small caps for the second half. And you said they were going to go up 50% in the second half, or something like that, didn't you?
Yeah.
But why do you keep doing this to yourself?
Well, the small caps have gotten hurt because the Fed has been on hold. It's been a hawkish pause, but I don't think the Fed's next move is to start raising rates. So, yeah, I know it's been not a great call, but I think small caps are still a second half story.
All right.
What?
We'll leave it there.
Yo, he called my boy out. Damn. Called him out on TV like that. Okay, I like it. I like that they're honest, and he took that to the chin. He's been wrong so far. But has he like I need context on this. How bad has the Russell 2000 been this month? Or this year? Because I guess small caps have been getting killed because of the tariffs and stuff. Like they got hurt the worst. Is that what that means? Let's find out. So the Russell 2000 index, which tracks the U.S. small cap stocks, has raised significant challenges in 2025, underperforming larger indices like the S&P 500. Several key factors contribute to this struggle. The trade policy and tariffs. Yep, the reintroduction of aggressive tariff trade policies under President Trump's second term, including sweeping tariffs announced in April 2025, has disproportionately impacted small cap companies. These firms, often more domestically focused and reliant on imported materials, are more vulnerable to increased costs from tariffs. The resulting uncertainty has dampened investor confidence in small cap stocks. Yeah, I mean, if they're not Nvidia, where they can just, here's $500 billion to start building some factories, or they've been building some things in America, right? It takes a lot of money and resources and capital. Just people don't understand the scale of access to the best of the best these companies have to just say, we're going to open the Tesla factory in Austin, Texas. Like, that's a crazy, crazy task. Hey, appreciate it, David. Yeah, I got a whole new setup. Got a mixer, a better mic. Can you notice the mic too? But yeah, definitely hurting these small companies a lot worse. But it's also everybody's moving their money to AI stocks. And the AI stocks are the biggest companies. That's what people don't understand. Like, I was looking at this like a typical business. But these tech stocks, they don't work like a typical business. The people who are going to completely change the world, these companies, this is literally the new golden era. I've never been excited about this. I didn't feel like crypto was the next internet, bro. I just didn't, and it didn't make sense to me. Now, crypto's still cool, don't get me wrong. I think it'll still be part of it. But I think what's going to make it work is semiconductors creating a whole new world for us with AI, robotics, automation. It's crazy. These AI, the AI, bro, it's starting to reason. It's understanding physics, and it's insane, bro. So I've just been fascinated by it. I feel like this is the internet. The way the internet changed the world, this is that. People were trying to say crypto was, but I think crypto will be part of what AI is going to create for the world. But AI is the wave, bro. It's crazy. And so people are just like, bro, the returns we used to get from small caps, we think we're going to get here with these big companies. They were saying, bro, a company that's worth $3 trillion, NVIDIA, they increased their revenues by 69%. What the? How the hell? What the hell? No. But speaking of, Tom Lee getting called out here for his call on the Russell 2000, he thinks things are going to turn around. And I agree with him. He was trying to dog Tom Lee a little bit there. But Tom Lee's like, actually, a little humble as shit. The way he talk, his mannerisms and shit make him, he's unique. Not a bad way, like in a good way. He's so damn smart. He's like, he's him, he's his own person. Tom Lee. That's why people are fans of him. But it makes total sense, bro. The second half, people were super scared by tariffs. And I think that people are starting to feel like, man, this is just them negotiating, bro. It's going tit for tat. At this point, we know we're going to get, tariffs are part of our life at this point, and it's priced in, but it's going to take longer for the public to see that, where investors already see it. Business owners already see it that way. It's going to take a little bit for the consumers, to have that sentiment. And the people who are going to get out of this last are small cap companies, where I'm sure the big companies are already done. Like, they've raised their prices. It is what it is. They're making their moves. They had a whole bunch of cash sitting there. They're using it now, putting that capital to work. So I can see small cap companies coming back around in the second half, but people gonna put their money in NVIDIA, bro. They're gonna put it in NVIDIA. So unless the government, I don't know, man. It's a tricky one. I'd love to hear what y'all think. Cause this one's got me, man. I'm trying to play devil's advocate and stuff, but this one's got me. Anyways, let's check out what there's this guy, Steve Eisman, who was a Big Short, the movie Big Short. He was one of the traders from the real life traders. And we've been listening to Jamie Dimon a lot lately, and how Jamie Dimon's been, he's been, I hear him, but I also have heard the criticisms that nothing's gonna happen to the bond market. We're good. But Jamie Dimon, he's doing his part to keep things balanced because people listen to him. He shifts sentiment. He's a big deal in the financial sector. And so his opinion moves things. And so I think he speaks up when he just wants to nudge the market, wants to nudge, people a certain direction. Don't get too greedy. Like y'all are getting excited about AI, but don't mess it up. Don't create a bubble out of this, So yeah, interesting stuff. Now, let's listen to the guy from Big Short who has some shit to say about Jamie Dimon. It's pretty funny. Leo, what's up?
Profiled in The Big Short is not willing to take on a lot of risk right now. Let's bring in Steve Eisman, host of the Real Eisman Playbook podcast. He's former senior portfolio manager at Neuberger Berman. Steve, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me back.
Podcaster. Now,
well, I mean, look, he goes from Steve Eisman suit and tie.
And now he's got a podcast wardrobe.
He always looks good, though.
Yeah.
Valerie's doing a great job.
Yeah, anyway, so my wardrobe has been redone by my wife and daughters.
As it should be. All right. So in terms of not willing to take risks, why not? Are you worried about valuations? Now, what is your biggest concern?
I have one concern, and that's tariffs. That's it. I mean, the market's gotten pretty complacent about it, but, in any trade negotiation, the details really matter. And I think negotiating with Europe about tariffs is incredibly complicated because each country effectively has a veto on any issue that it wants, that thinks it's important. And I don't know what's going to happen with China. I don't know how to I just don't know how to handicap this because there's just too many balls in the air. So, I mean, I'm long only. I've taken some risks down, and I'm just sitting pat.
What do you make of the action in the bond market? And I know, we've been on a number of panels in the past, and you said I can't think about the deficit. It matters until it matters.
Same way. I mean, you were talking Jamie Dimon before.
Yeah.
Every couple of years, with all due respect to Jamie Dimon, who's a great CEO, Jamie Dimon likes to get on his soapbox and start uttering nattering nabobs of negativism.
Hold on, nattering
nabobs of negativism.
That's very Dr.
That's actually from...
That's alliteration, guy. That's what we call alliteration.
William Safire wrote that in the 70s for Spiro Agnew. It was actually very famous in its day. I like to use it once in a blue moon.
That was the time.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well done.
So when Jamie gets on that, nabob soapbox of his, I tend not to pay too much attention.
All right. So you don't want to take a lot, but you're still long only, and you're still long, and you're
Yes.
still in, I would assume, Mag 7 heavily.
I am.
So you're not. Have you changed that position at all? Lightened up?
I mean, I've
gone
lined up a
elsewhere?
little bit on pretty much everything, but I'm pretty invested.
So I think it was the last time that I was on when you were on, you talked about NVIDIA and Jensen Huang.
Yes.
And how you have never seen anyone sort of, I don't know if it was confident or something to express confidence.
I mean, those numbers were wild.
Yes, so that was a wild
I mean,
act.
you think about it, what is this, a $3 trillion company whose revenue grew 69%? I mean, it's unbelievable when you
That's
think
what I was
about
talking
it.
about.
It's insane. So I just think the AI revolution is early. But, if God forbid there's a trade war, none of that will matter in the near term. It just won't.
What do you make of the gold market, Steve? Because, I mean, it sells off, but then it comes...
I don't know. I didn't get that part. You guys tell me in the comments, now this is an old camera of mine that was laying around, but yeah, it's a new camera that I set up. It was always a better camera, and this ain't nothing. I got way better cameras than this. But we use it for like filming stuff, not for streaming. But this is an upgrade in my opinion, and then the microphone is an upgrade too. Man, I just invested some more money, man, because I'm enjoying this. Why not try to do the best you can? Y'all got to see my setup. Y'all want to see my setup? I'm such a nerd, bro. I'm such a fucking nerd, bro. Yo, check me out. So this my Osmo, right? Hold on, because I want y'all to see my setup. Oh shit, my bad. Whoops, rookie mistake. I'm figuring this out, guys. All right, check this out, yeah. This shit's funny. So look. So this is my my Stream Deck. All right, this is how I switch different scenes. So watch, I'm gonna switch to my main camera. I'm gonna switch to this screen, and I'm gonna go back to my Osmo because I'm a fucking nerd. This is a Rodecaster Duo, and this is how I'm controlling the sound. I can control like the volume of everything, the volume of my microphone, everything that's going on here. You know, I don't know if you guys could hear this. I don't know if I set this up right. Damn, that shit loud. Did y'all hear that? That shit way too loud. Let me see if y'all heard that. Nah, I don't think y'all heard that. I got to figure that out. All right. So this is actually a one monitor that folds into two. Pretty cool. No, it's two monitors that is connected, but it folds closed like a clamshell, and you could travel with it. So I love that, and it connects with USB-C. There's the camera. This is the microphone that I just got. This is the Shure 7. The Shure S, I don't freaking know. Something like that. Obviously this is my main monitor. Then I got my iPad right here. So I can, like when y'all see when I want to write something down, cause I be thinking and stuff. Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes, bro, I just be writing shit, not even for y'all to read. It just makes me clear my thoughts. You know what I mean? Like it makes me really think things through when you put it pen to paper. It ain't even for y'all to read, okay? You know, for those of y'all that see how bad my handwriting is. This machine right here is super important. Without this machine, you can't power all of this stuff. It's just too much to power. So that machine is super important. And I kind of just glazed over the camera. The camera is just it's an old camera. It's an M50. This was one of my original YouTube cameras. And I just got a 22 millimeter lens on it. But this little camera, this little M50, it's like, you could probably get for like $500 now. That little camera is glass, bro. It's pretty glass, you know? And this is a dark room. So fucking walk-in closet I'm in. So, but if you got a decent sized closet, it's good to use it because of the clothing and stuff, and all the blankets that we have in here is just sound dampening. So no one in my house could hear me, but y'all can't hear everybody in my house. You know what I mean? So it's a perfect setup. All right, and then my favorite keyboard, my favorite mouse. Oh, and I got another monitor right here. And that's legitimately just to monitor the stream as it's going. Those are all my settings, my the sound that's going through the stream versus what I'm controlling over here, right? All of it has its purpose. So your boy is a nerd. But I'm genuinely enjoying this shit, man. All right. I'm breathing hard as shit. Oh, yeah, I can hear it. That's crazy. All right, let's keep watching.
Back on days like today, raging back. Karen mentioned copper. I mean, I think the gold market is trying to tell us all something. Thoughts?
I'm not a gold guy. I tend not to pay too much attention to gold. I really don't.
So,
Me either,
by the way,
yeah.
Stevie, it is a real Don
Not that
Johnson
mad,
look
but
you're working tonight. And so
Voting
that's,
my
I'm
thing.
using that as a...
My wife and daughter hopefully are watching, and they're taking the compliment.
100%.
100%.
It's a compliment. And that was probably, when Miami Vice was run, that was probably the last time we balanced the budget. Now, I know you don't care about the deficit on some level, but I do think it's relevant, at least around the times it appears that this administration blinked, when when we had a 10-year auction, and there was certainly, like, the rest of the world was paying attention, and we were seeing a spike in the 10-year. That was a combination of a lot of themes you've at least listened to for years. A lot of these themes aren't new. In fact, you know,
not new. They're 40 years old.
Correct. So therefore, you at times have played that theme, at least the theme around where the system was either over-levered and there was a lot of...
I never played the deficit theme. I mean, I sat in a room with Pete Peterson in the 90s when he was nabobbing about the deficit back then. So
But are foreign investors nabobbing about investing in the United States?
I really just don't take all that seriously. You know, people like to pontificate. You know, the deficit is Wall Street's version of virtue signaling.
I got you, Don. Give me a second.
People like to come on, you know, shows like this and say, I'm against the deficit. And then the next guest comes out and says, oh, he's not. I'm much more against the deficit than he is. It's an all virtue thing. But at the end of the day, yeah, the 10 years gone up, but it's still 4.5%. It's not like there's some massive, crazy sell-off.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's virtue signaling, but I don't take it all that serious.
I like him though. What's his name? Steve Eisman. Okay, I'm new to this stuff, man, but I'm enjoying it. Let's see. Oh yeah, I got you right now. Let's see. Boom. This is it right here. So it's expensive. It's too expensive, but it's the best one, bro. I bought so many of these things to try to have more USB-Cs because I got this Apple MacBook was $5,000 and it has 3 USB-C ports. And so you can't do shit with it. Like, I love my MacBook, but damn, give us some more ports, man. $5,000 laptop. Let me stop screaming. No, but this gives you four Thunderbolt, or 3 Thunderbolt ports and 2 of these 40-foot watt ports. It's the best, bro. It's the best. And I've gone through so many of these guys. You'll regret not just buying it right the first time. Because I've spent probably $1,000 buying. First one was like, $80. Then that outgrew that quick. Then I got one for like $150. Outgrew that thing quick. Then I got one for like $2 something. Outgrew it. So I went through. Now I got all these freaking docking stations, and I could, spend over $1,000 on them when I could just bought this one time. This would be the last one you need, bro. So it's called the Anchor Prime TB5 docking station. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. All right. Oh, man, I'm about to nerd out right now. I know it's late. This is going to be the last video I watch, but it's a long video. But fuck it, we nerding out, man. We having a good time, so let's do this. So we was going through the whole AI not the AI, but the semiconductor rabbit hole, because I'm like, man, all of this, I keep hearing all this stuff, man. Let me really map this out and understand this. Let's go deep. And when I started learning about how chips are created, computer chips, CPUs, I was fascinated. Like, it's magic. It's a miracle. It says in the Bible, God reveals to himself to you everywhere. Just look at, like, it doesn't say that, obviously, but that's how I interpret it. He's everywhere. He's proven he's real. The fact that these semiconductor chips are created by rocks, by minerals, by sand, silicone. And it's humans that are smart enough some way, some shape, some form, someone figured out that these rocks, we can make them think and remember things. What? I was like, man, this shit's crazy. And so we've gotten so good at engineering these chips, bro, that they figured out ways to. Transistors used to be like this big, bro. And now, and so the first computer had transistors that were huge light bulbs. You know what I mean? And now transistors are the size of probably, they're smaller than dust particles. They're smaller, like way smaller than dust particles. That's how, and so in one little chip, right, they figured out how to put billions and billions and billions of transistors in a little chip. And that's how that much power fits in that chip. And it's all sand. It's made out of sand. Okay. Quartz sand. And so anyways, this is how AI is made possible. AI is rocks thinking. Crazy, bro. I know that sounds insane, but AI is literally because we learned how to make sand think. Shit's insane, bro. Anyways, let's check out this video on these GPUs. That's the next level for me. And then we're going to get really deep into AI and understand that. And I've already been, going through that rabbit hole, but I really want to go through that rabbit hole like as a student, like focus, whiteboard, all that shit. So, and then, I'm probably going to start I'm going to start investing a lot. I'm going to create a whole new portfolio for investing in just individual stocks. Or what I might do is use my kids' Roth and build that up. All right.
Understand the differences between GPUs and CPUs. How many calculations do you think your graphics card performs every second while running video games with incredibly realistic graphics? Maybe 100 million? Well, 100 million calculations a second is what's required to run Mario 64 from 1996. We need more power. Maybe 100 billion calculations a second? Well, then you would have a computer that could run Minecraft back in 2011. In order to run the most realistic video games such as Cyberpunk 2077, you need a graphics card that can perform around 36 trillion calculations a second. This is an unimaginably large number, so let's take a second to try to conceptualize it. Imagine doing a long multiplication problem once every second. Now let's say everyone on the planet does a similar type of calculation, but with different numbers. To reach the equivalent computational power of this graphics card and its 36 trillion calculations a second, we would need about 4,400 Earths filled with people, all working together and completing one calculation each every second. It's rather mind-boggling to think that a device can manage all these calculations, so in this video we'll see how graphics cards work in two parts. First, we'll open up this graphics card and explore the different components inside, as well as the physical design and architecture of the GPU, or Graphics Processing Unit. Second, we'll explore the computational architecture and see how GPUs process mountains of data and why they're ideal for running video game graphics, Bitcoin mining, neural networks, and AI. So stick around and let's jump right in. This video is sponsored by Micron, which manufactures the graphics memory inside this graphics card. Before we dive into all the parts of the GPU, let's first understand the differences between GPUs and CPUs. Inside this graphics card, the Graphics Processing Unit, or GPU, has over 10,000 cores. However, when we look at the CPU, or Central Processing Unit, that's mounted to the motherboard, we find an integrated circuit or chip with only 24 cores. So which one is more powerful? 10,000 is a lot more than 24, so you would think the GPU is more powerful. However, it's more complicated than that. A useful analogy is to think of a GPU as a massive cargo ship and a CPU as a jumbo jet airplane. The amount of cargo capacity is the amount of calculations and data that can be processed, and the speed of the ship or airplane is the rate at which how quickly those calculations and data are being processed. Essentially, it's a trade-off between a massive number of calculations that are executed at a slower rate versus a few calculations that can be performed at a much faster rate. Another key difference is that airplanes are a lot more flexible since they can carry passengers, packages, or containers and can take off and land at any one of tens of thousands of airports. Likewise, CPUs are flexible in that they can run a variety of programs and instructions. However, giant cargo ships carry only containers with bulk contents inside and are limited to traveling between ports. Similarly, GPUs are a lot less flexible than CPUs and can only run simple instructions like basic arithmetic. Additionally, GPUs can't run operating systems or interface with input devices or networks. This analogy isn't perfect, but it helps to answer the question of which is faster, a CPU or a GPU. Essentially, if you want to perform a set of calculations across mountains of data, then a GPU will be faster at completing the task. However, if you have a lot less data that needs to be evaluated quickly, then a CPU will be faster. Furthermore, if you need to run an operating system or support network connections in a wide range of different applications and hardware, then you'll want a CPU. We're planning a separate video on CPU architecture, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. But let's now dive into this graphics card and see how it works. In the center of this graphics card is the printed circuit board, or PCB, with all the various components mounted on it. And we'll start by exploring the brains, which is the Graphics Processing Unit, or GPU. When we open it up, we find a large chip or die named GA102, built from 28.3 billion transistors. The majority of the area of the chip is taken up by the processing cores, which have a hierarchical organization. Specifically, the chip is divided into 7 graphics processing clusters, or GPCs, and within each processing cluster are 12 streaming multiprocessors, or SMs. Next, inside each of these streaming multiprocessors are 4 warps and 1 ray tracing core, and then inside each warp are 32 CUDA, or shading cores, and 1 tensor core. Across the entire GPU are 10,752 CUDA cores, 336 tensor cores, and 84 ray tracing cores. These 3 types of cores execute all the calculations of the GPU, and each has a different function. CUDA cores can be thought of as simple binary calculators with an addition button, a multiply button, and a few others, and are used the most when running video games. Tensor cores are matrix multiplication and addition calculators and are used for geometric transformations and working with neural networks and AI. And ray tracing cores are the largest but the fewest and are used to execute ray tracing algorithms. Now that we understand the computational resources inside this chip, one rather interesting fact is that the 3080, 3090, 3080 Ti, and 3090 Ti graphics cards all use the same GA102 chip design for their GPU. This might be counterintuitive because they have different prices and were released in different years, but it's true. So why is this? Well, during the manufacturing process, sometimes patterning errors, dust particles, or other manufacturing issues cause damage and create defective areas of the circuit. Instead of throwing out the
It's crazy that I learned this when I was studying CPUs. They're the same shit. It's just based on the quality of the finish, the QC. It's insane. And people will tell you it's the same shit. It's the same chip. It's the same chip. Nah, brother. You got some shit. You got some messed up chips. You know, the black market with their chips. Those might be some messed up chips.
entire chip because of a small
Whole lot of dust particles.
defect.
So stupid.
Engineers find the defective region and permanently isolate and deactivate the nearby circuitry. By having a GPU with a highly repetitive design, a small defect in one core only damages that particular streaming multiprocessor circuit and doesn't affect the other areas of the chip. As a result, these chips are tested and categorized or binned according to the number of defects. The 3090 Ti graphics card have flawless GA102 chips, with all 10,752 CUDA cores working properly. The 3090 has 10,496 cores working. The 3080 Ti 10,000 flawless GX. The 3090 Ti graphics card have flawless GA102 chips.
BVS.
With all 10,752 CUDA cores working properly. The 3090 has 10,496 cores working. The 3080 Ti has 10,240, and the 3080 has 8,704 CUDA cores working, which is equivalent to having 16 damaged and deactivated streaming multiprocessors. Additionally, different graphics cards differ by their maximum clock speed and the quantity and generation of graphics memory that supports the GPU, which we'll explore in a little bit. Because we've been focusing on the physical architecture of this GA102 GPU chip, let's zoom into one of these CUDA cores and see what it looks like. Inside this simple calculator is a layout of approximately 410,000 transistors. This section of 50,000 transistors performs the operation of A times B plus C, which is called fused multiply and add, or FMA, and is the most common operation performed by graphics cards. Half of the CUDA cores execute FMA using 32-bit floating point numbers, which is essentially scientific notation, and the other half of the cores use either 32-bit integers or 32-bit floating point numbers. Other sections of this core accommodate negative numbers and perform other simple functions like bit shifting and bit masking, as well as collecting and queuing the incoming instructions and operands, and then accumulating and outputting the results. As a result, this single core is just a simple calculator with a limited number of functions. This calculator completes one multiply and one add operation each clock cycle, and therefore with this 3090 graphics card and its 10,496 cores and 1.7 gigahertz clock, we get 35.6 trillion calculations a second. However, if you're wondering how the GPU handles more complicated operations like division, square root, and trigonometric functions, well, these calculator operations are performed by the special function units, which are far fewer as only 4 of them can be found in each streaming multiprocessor. Now that we have an understanding of what's inside a single core, let's zoom out and take a look at the other sections of the GA102 chip. Around the edge, we find 12 graphics memory controllers, the NVLink controllers, and the PCIe interface. On the bottom is a 6 megabyte Level 2 SRAM memory cache. And here's the GigaThread engine, which manages all the graphics processing clusters and streaming multiprocessors inside. Now that we've explored this GA102 GPU's physical architecture, let's zoom out and take a look at the other parts inside the graphics card. On this side are the various ports for the displays to be plugged into. On the other side is the incoming 12-volt power connector. And then here are the PCIe pins that plug into the motherboard. On the PCB, the majority of the smaller components constitute the voltage regulator module, which takes the incoming 12 volts and converts it to 1.1 volts and supplies hundreds of watts of power to the GPU. Because all this power heats up the GPU, most of the weight of the graphics card is in the form of a heatsink, with 4 heat pipes that carry heat from the GPU and memory chips to the radiator fins, where fans then help to remove the heat. Perhaps some of the most important components, aside from the GPU, are the 24 gigabytes of graphics memory chips, which are technically called GDDR6X SDRAM, and were manufactured by Micron, which is the sponsor of this video. Whenever you start up a video game or wait for a loading screen, the time it takes to load is mostly spent moving all the 3D models of a particular scene or environment from the solid-state drive into these graphics memory chips. As mentioned earlier, the GPU has a small amount of data storage in its 6 megabyte shared Level 2 cache, which can hold the equivalent of about this much of the video game's environment. Therefore, in order to render a video game, different chunks of scene are continuously being transferred between the graphics memory and the GPU. Because the cores are constantly performing tens of trillions of calculations a second, GPUs are data-hungry machines and need to be continuously fed terabytes upon terabytes of data. And thus, these graphics memory chips are designed kind of like multiple cranes, loading a cargo ship at the same time. Specifically, these 24 chips transfer a combined 384 bits at a time, which is called the bus width. And the total data that can be transferred, or the bandwidth, is about 1.15 terabytes a second. In contrast, the sticks of DRAM that support the CPU only have a 64-bit bus width and a maximum bandwidth closer to 64 gigabytes a second. One rather interesting thing is that you may think that computers only work using binary ones and zeros. However, in order to increase data transfer rates, GDDR6X and the latest graphics memory, GDDR7, send and receive data across the bus wires using multiple voltage levels beyond just 0 and 1. For example, GDDR7 uses 3 different encoding schemes to combine binary bits into ternary digits, or PAM3 symbols with voltages of 0, 1, and -1. Here's the encoding scheme on how 3 binary bits are encoded into 2 ternary digits, and this scheme is combined with an 11-bit to 7 ternary digit encoding scheme, resulting in sending 276 binary bits using only 176 ternary digits. The previous generation GDDR6X, which is the memory in this 3090 graphics card, used a different encoding scheme called PAM4 to send 2 bits of data using 4 different voltage levels. However, engineers in the graphics memory industry agreed to switch to PAM3 for future generations of graphics chips in order to reduce encoder complexity, improve the signal-to-noise ratio, and improve power efficiency. Micron delivers consistent innovation to push the boundaries on how much data can be transferred every second, and to design cutting-edge memory chips.
You can invest in Micron. That's on my watch list.
Another advancement by Micron is the development of HBM, or the high bandwidth memory that surrounds AI chips. HBM is built from stacks of DRAM memory chips and uses TSVs, or through-silicon vias, to connect the stack into a single chip, essentially forming a cube of AI memory. For the latest generation of high-bandwidth memory, which is HBM3E, a single cube can have up to 24 to 36 gigabytes of memory, thus yielding 192 gigabytes of high-speed memory around the AI chip. Next time you buy an AI accelerator system, make sure it uses Micron's HBM3E, which uses 30% less power than the competitive products. However, unless you're building an AI data center, you're likely not in the market to buy one of these systems, which cost between $25,000 to $40,000 and are on backorder for a few years. If you're curious about high bandwidth memory or Micron's next generation of graphics memory, take a look at one of these links in the description. Alternatively, if designing the next generation of memory chips interests you, Micron is always looking for talented scientists and engineers to help innovate on cutting-edge chips. And you can find out more about working for Micron using
It's crazy.
this link.
I've never seen a commercial from Micron. I knew about Micron, but I never, never seen a commercial because I don't consume the content, obviously, that they try to target. But they're targeting scientists and engineers and talent the same way we target. It's crazy because people ask me all the time, how do we have so many barbers that want to work at my shops? Because I'm always talking about them. I'm always talking about the business and how important it and how I do business. And so people just kind of gravitate towards it if they feel like the mission statement, is relatable, because we always talking about it. We do haircut tutorial. We was doing haircut tutorials. I don't do it as much, but the squad's still doing it. And we got the Tune 45 channel. So, that's at 25,000 subscribers. Shout out to everybody who followed us there, who's supporting. We're launching a whole line of products now, and we're just going to support creators, and we're going to try to build the economy in the barbering industry. My economy's built. Let's rising tide raise all ships, right? So let's start helping barbers make more money. And so that messaging people can relate to. I love that let me get back to the topic. I love that Micron is doing this. This is cool. And I do it in my industry, so that's why I can say I like it.
Now that we've explored many of the physical components inside this graphics card and GPU, let's next explore the computational architecture and see how applications like video game graphics and Bitcoin mining run what's called embarrassingly parallel operations. Although it may sound like a silly name, embarrassingly parallel is actually a technical classification of computer problems where little or no effort is needed to divide the problem into parallel tasks, and video game rendering and Bitcoin mining easily fall into this category. Essentially, GPUs solve embarrassingly parallel problems using a principle called SIMD, which stands for Single Instruction Multiple Data, where the same instructions or steps are repeated across thousands to millions of different numbers. Let's see an example of how SIMD, or Single Instruction Multiple Data, is used to create this 3D video game environment. As you may know already, this cowboy hat on the table is composed of approximately 28,000 triangles, built by connecting together around 14,000 vertices, each with X, Y, and Z coordinates. These vertex coordinates are built using a coordinate system called model space, with the origin of 000 being at the center of the hat. To build a 3D world, we place hundreds of objects, each with their own model space, into the world environment, and in order for the camera to be able to tell where each object is relative to other objects, we have to convert or transform all the vertices from each separate model space into the shared world coordinate system, or world space. So, as an example, how do we convert the 14,000 vertices of the cowboy hat from model space into world space? Well, we use a single instruction which adds the position of the origin of the hat in world space to the corresponding x, y, and z coordinate of a single vertex in model space. Next, we copy this instruction to multiple data, which is all the remaining x, y, and z coordinates of the other thousands of vertices that are used to build the hat.
Man, I wish
Next,
I paid
we do
attention
the same
in school,
for the
man.
table and the rest of the hundreds of other objects in the scene, each time using the same instructions but with the different object's coordinates in world space, and each object's thousands of vertices in model space. As a result, all the vertices and triangles of all the objects are converted to a common world space coordinate system, and the camera can now determine which objects are in front and which are behind. This example illustrates the power of SIMD, or Single Instruction Multiple Data, and how a single instruction is applied to 5,629 different objects with a total of 8.3 million vertices within the scene, resulting in 25 million addition calculations. The key to SIMD and embarrassingly parallel programs is that every one of these millions of calculations has no dependency on any other calculation, and thus all these calculations can be distributed to the thousands of cores of the GPU and completed in parallel with one another. It's important to note that vertex transformation from model space to world space is just one of the first steps of a rather complicated video game graphics rendering pipeline, and we have a separate video that delves deeper into each of these other steps. Also, we skipped over the transformations for the rotation and scale of each object, but factoring in these values is a similar process that requires additional SIMD calculations. Now that we have a simple understanding of SIMD, let's discuss how this computational architecture matches up with the physical architecture. Essentially, each instruction is completed by a thread, and this thread is matched to a single CUDA core. Threads are bundled into groups of 32 called warps, and the same sequence of instructions is issued to all the threads in a warp. Next, warps are grouped into thread blocks, which are handled by the streaming multiprocessor. And then finally, thread blocks are grouped into grids, which are computed across the overall GPU. All these computations are managed or scheduled by the GigaThread engine, which efficiently maps thread blocks to the available streaming multiprocessors. One important distinction is that within SIMD architecture, all 32 threads in a warp follow the same instructions and are in lockstep with each other, kind of like a phalanx of soldiers moving together. This lockstep execution applied to GPUs up until around 2016. However, newer GPUs follow a SIMT architecture, or Single Instruction Multiple Threads. The difference between SIMD and SIMT is that while both send the same set of instructions to each thread, with SIMT, the individual threads don't need to be in lockstep with each other and can progress at different rates. In technical jargon, each thread is given its own program counter. Additionally, with SIMT, all the threads within a streaming multiprocessor use a shared 128 kilobyte L1 cache, and thus data that's output by one thread can be subsequently used by a separate thread. This improvement from SIMD to SIMT allows for more flexibility when encountering warp divergence via data-dependent conditional branching and easier reconvergence for the threads to reach the barrier synchronization. Essentially, newer architectures of GPUs are more flexible and efficient, especially when encountering branches in code. One additional note is that although you may think that the term warp is derived from warp drives, it actually comes from weaving, and specifically the Jacquard loom. This loom from 1804 used programmable punch cards to select specific threads out of a set to weave together intricate patterns. As fascinating as looms are, let's move on. The final topics we'll explore are Bitcoin mining, tensor cores, and neural networks. But first, we'd like to ask you to like this video, write a quick comment below, share it with a colleague, friend, or on social media, and subscribe if you haven't already.
If y'all liking this content,
the dream
subscribe,
of Branch
man.
Education is to make free and
Branch
accessible,
Education.
visually engaging educational videos that dive.
There was one video I watched of theirs, bro. They spent like 1,500 hours making that video. Crazy.
So now that we've explored how single instruction multiple threads is used in video games, let's briefly discuss why GPUs were initially used for mining Bitcoin. We're not going to get too far into the algorithm behind the blockchain, and we'll save it for a separate episode. But essentially, to create a block on the blockchain, the SHA-256 hashing algorithm is run on a set of data that includes transactions, a timestamp, additional data, and a random number called a nonce. After feeding these values through the SHA-256 hashing algorithm, a random 256-bit value is output. You can kind of think of this algorithm as a lottery ticket generator, where you can't pick the lottery number, but based on the input data, the SHA-256 algorithm generates a random lottery ticket number. Therefore, if you change the nonce value and keep the rest of the transaction data the same, you'll generate a new random lottery ticket number. The winner of this Bitcoin mining lottery is the first randomly generated lottery number to have the first 80 bits all zeros, while the rest of the 176 values don't matter. And once a winning Bitcoin lottery ticket is found, the reward is 3 Bitcoin and the lottery resets with a new set of transactions and input values. So why were graphics cards used? Well, GPUs ran thousands of iterations of the SHA-256 algorithm, with the same transactions, timestamp, other data, but with different nonce values. As a result, a graphics card like this one could generate around 95 million SHA-256 hashes, or 95 million randomly numbered lottery tickets every second. And hopefully, one of those lottery numbers would have the first 80 digits as all zeros. However, nowadays, computers filled with ASICs, or application-specific integrated circuits, perform 250 trillion hashes a second, or the equivalent of 2,600 graphics cards, thereby making graphics cards look like a spoon when mining Bitcoin, next to an excavator that is an ASIC mining computer.
Damn.
Let's next discuss the design of the tensor cores. It'll take multiple full-length videos to cover generative AI and neural networks, so we'll focus on the exact matrix math that tensor cores solve. Essentially, tensor cores take 3 matrices and multiply the first 2, add in the third, and then output the result. Let's look at one value of the output. This value is equal to the sum of values of the first row of the first matrix, multiplied by the values from the first column of the second matrix, and then the corresponding value of the third matrix is added in. Because all the values of the 3 input matrices are ready at the same time, the tensor cores complete all of the matrix multiplication and addition calculations concurrently. Neural networks and generative AI require trillions to quadrillions of matrix multiplication and addition operations, and typically uses much larger matrices. Finally, there are ray tracing cores, which we explored in a separate video that's already been released. That's pretty much it for graphics cards. We're thankful to all our Patreon and YouTube membership sponsors for supporting our videos.
Man, I ain't gonna lie, that was a long video, but I understand it a lot better now. All right. Well, tomorrow I think it's going to be a green day. We're going to see. I'm probably going to try to close or roll some of these positions that I have here. Damn, that shit got bright. So, well, not these. Yeah, right here. So I'll probably try to roll or close hood and re-enter. The price just has to be right. The premium has to be good. If it's not, then I'll just keep it. Palantir, same. You know, that's what I want to do, but it has to make sense financially, right? The premiums have to be there. I think SoFi, I can roll. I checked today, I could probably roll. So that's looking good. But we'll try to keep everything July 3rd. That's the expiration date. So that's gonna be the move tomorrow. And I just noticed I wasn't showing you guys my screen. But Hood 61%. Palantir, if it goes over 50, we'll try to roll that as well. But again, it depends. So I could potentially realize 1,200 and get right back in for more premium. But it has to make sense. It's got to be more premium, right? All right, you guys. Have a good night. Thanks for hanging out with me. This was a late night stream, but I was excited about my new setup. Just wanted to try it out, and the streams are going to get better, I promise. I'm going to get better at this.